Hey guys, my name is Mason, and I'm so excited to share with you what God is doing in Jonathan and I's life. We are preparing to head to the field of Portugal to serve as cross-cultural interns with Word of Life. Now, you might be asking, why Portugal? And I would say, great question. If you were to Google Portugal right now, you would find that Portugal is actually 80 to 90% Catholic. But this number doesn't exactly mean what you might think it means at face value. As an American, I would read that statistic and I would think, oh, there's 80 to 90% of people in Portugal who believe in God and go to Mass every Sunday and practice the Catholic faith. But the more that you would spend time in Portugal and talk with locals, you would start to realize that that isn't exactly the case. Jonathan and I spent some time in Portugal this past April, and in talking with one of the missionaries there, they shared that a Portuguese person can say that they are both Catholic and atheist at the same time, and they don't realize that those two statements actually contradict each other. How does that happen, you may be wondering? Well, there is a history of a Catholic dictatorship who actually ruled in Portugal until the 70s. And he mandated Catholicism. And of course, when somebody mandates Catholicism, that means everybody in the country is, quote, Catholic. But that does not mean that everybody shares the Catholic views of God. Now, with that in mind, let's look at the evangelical church. With only a 3.2% of the population being evangelical, there is a very small presence of the local body of believers who claim to know Jesus and follow him. Now, what I'm not trying to say is I'm not saying that every Catholic is not a believer, but I am saying that we have to look at that 80 to 90% with a grain of salt. And we really need to get to know people to understand where they are at in their own walks with the Lord. And that's where Word of Life comes in. Word of Life, or Palavra da Vida, which is Word of Life in Portuguese, exists to serve the Portuguese local church. Their three main goals of ministry are authentic relationships, leadership development, and mobilization. Their goal is to have deep and authentic relationships with the Portuguese youth, as well as the local churches, to help them to have a real and authentic relationship with Jesus. And if you have a relationship with Jesus, then not just leaving you there, but growing you as a leader and developing you in your skills, and then mobilizing you, giving you the tools that you need to go out and share your faith with your community. Now, what does that mean for Jonathan and I? As we're preparing to move to Portugal to serve with this ministry, we are in the process of building our team. Now, what does that mean? Well, when we look at Scripture, we see that God has actually given every single believer the command to go therefore and make disciples of all nations. That doesn't mean just the missionaries. That means every single believer is called to go and make disciples of every single nation. And that is a really big task. And that's why we need every single follower of Jesus to be a part of it. Now, some people are able to go to the field like my husband and I. Some people aren't able to go because of health reasons or whatever the cause may be. But they are able to financially give, and every believer is able to pray. Paul talks about in Ephesians about how God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think according to the power that works in us. Now, what he's talking about is about how God is doing a great work. And God could do it exceedingly abundantly, everything we ask or think. But he wants to do it according to the power that works in us. Now, that means that we have to get off the couch and we have to be active in what God is wanting to do in us. For some of us, that means moving overseas. For some of us, that means partnering with those moving overseas by giving to them on a monthly basis. And for most people, well, for every person, that means that we should be praying. There's so much more I could say about these verses, but what Jonathan and I want to emphasize to you is that we are inviting you into a partnership, that as God is working in us, we want to invite you to be a part of it. Now, That's a lot. And we actually would love to share more with you and be able to sit down on a more personal level. So if you would like to scan this QR code, this will take you to our ministry page where you can read more about our ministry. You can sign up for our newsletters, which we'll be sending out monthly, so that you can see what we're doing as we're serving in Portugal. You are also able to hit the Contact Us button. We would love to connect with you, to grab a cup of coffee or a meal and share more with you about what God is doing in us, and hear about what He's doing in you, and see about how maybe the Lord wants to use us to fulfill the Great Commission together.